All right, this week we're talking about leaders, stories of people in the Bible who we would have never chosen to start a mission if we were choosing it, but God chose them, and there's a bunch to learn from their stories. And so today we're talking about Gideon. And Gideon's story comes from Judges 6 through 8. All 3 chapters are worth reading because his story is just amazing. But we're going to talk about a couple things at the beginning of Gideon's story and why they apply to us. All right, so when Gideon shows up, he is hiding from his enemies. He's doing silly stuff to just not get hurt by his enemies. He's a little guy. He sees himself as a little guy, the smallest guy from the smallest tribe of his town. But God used people like Gideon to be judges. A judge was simply when Israel's heart got misaligned from God, God would use a judge to help lead them back to his heart. They were military leaders. They were legal authorities. Gideon didn't see himself as that. And so God shows up as an angel to Gideon and he says, "Hey, mighty warrior." Remember, Gideon's hiding. He's afraid. And God sees him as totally different than he sees himself. And so as God begins to tell him what he's going to do with him, Gideon just doubts everything about his ability. So he starts testing God. He says, "Okay, God, could you do this for me? And then I'll know you're true." And he does that. And then he's, okay, let me give you another test. Could you do this? And then I'll know that it's true. And he does that test. And then finally, the Spirit of God comes on Gideon, and then he gives him another test. Judges 6, 36 through 37. Here's what Gideon says. He said, "God, if you're truly going to save Israel through me, here's what I need you to do. Place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. And if there's dew on the fleece and not on the ground in the morning, I will know that you worked a miracle and you will save Israel by my hand." Gideon's like, "I'm going to put a fleece out there. Let's see if God will do his magic." And he does it. It's amazing because as you read Gideon's story, it's almost like you're like, what is it going to take for this man to believe that God can use him? And the funny thing is about his story, why it applies to us, Gideon doesn't actually doubt God. He asks God for miracles. He knows he can do miracles. Gideon doubts himself because he's still seeing himself as that little man that's hiding when God sees him as a mighty warrior. And that's what Gideon's story tells us, right? When we look in the mirror, do we see our faults and failures? Do we see the mistake we made, the child we shouldn't have had, the choice we shouldn't have made, the ways we've been failed, people around us, the way we lose jobs, the way that we can't possibly be used for anything good anymore because all we can see is the mistakes we've made? And yet God looks and shows up and he says, no, I know who you are, mighty warrior, chosen one, wanted, capable, educated. You are all that I need to do my work through you. And so Gideon's story shows us that God is patient with Gideon. He lets him ask questions and he lets you ask questions of God too. But in the end, he believed who God said he was more than he believed his own words. So that's my challenge for you today. Figure out what God says you are and believe it with all your heart because he wants to use you for his good work. Pray with me. God, thank you. Thank you for being who you are to us. You define who we are because you created our inmost being, it gave us a name, and called us at this time in this place. And so help us to believe, God, with all of our hearts and have confidence in you even when we doubt ourselves. Amen.